Hey everyone, Canadian Sergeant Steele here, and today I'm going to talk to you about the April 2024 Munitorum Field Manual point changes for the Astra Militarum. First thing that I want to cover is just to say, stop whining. Stop it. Stop. You're not helping anybody. You're bringing no joy to the game, and you're wrong, for the most part. Here's the thing. Every time we have changes to Warhammer 40k, everyone acts like the sky is falling. It's not. So many of you got on my social media. So, right, this is my own experience in January 2024, and you were like, oh, the changes to the orders are going to do nothing for the Astra Militarum. It's terrible. We're never going to win tournaments. We're never going to win our games. Everything is terrible. And guess what? It wasn't. It wasn't. And it was the same way in the fall. Everyone's like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. Like, well, they reduced Kazarkin. Remember, that was in the fall. And oh no, it's not going to help anything. And wrong again, right? Calm down. Stop whining. Buckle up. And get tough. Because guess what? These changes are still small when we look at the overall faction. And then the game as a whole, by the way, because you can't just look at our own faction. We have to look at how the rest of the game has been changed too. But with that, for our own particular faction, these changes are small. At most, if you're not fully spamming things in your army, right? If you weren't spamming Kazarkin and Basilisks and Manticores, then you probably just need to like drop one character like a Tech Priest, maybe a couple Cyclops demolition vehicles, and your list is once again on par with points. That's it. If that makes or break you winning your games, and most importantly, this is what I want to stress, having fun, then I think there's another problem here. That is not about the points. Sorry, that was my soapbox. I'm now off of it. Let's get into the point changes. So what are we actually talking about here? So in April 2024, Munitorum Field Manual, what has happened is they have done some internal balancing. This is what Games Workshop said they were going to start doing with factions, and I'm glad to see it. We've needed it. With that, we're all going to have our opinions also about what this is going to do. And opinions are fine. What I mentioned earlier is not about your opinion. It's about acting like the sky is falling and everything is doom and gloom. Chill out. So this isn't about that. But if you could be like, well, I think what they did to Kazarkin was I don't quite agree with it. I would have been more comfortable it was around like this kind of a tweak or that. That's fine, right? That's an opinion. So we're all going to have different opinions about this. And I think overall, they did an okay job. And so let's talk about what's actually changed. First, Attilan Rough Riders. So went down by 2 points per model. I think that's pretty fair. I was seeing them in some lists. I was seeing some players really enjoy them. At the event, provided it was a narrative event that I went to at Adepticon, people brought them, and even in big groups. I had one player, I think, with 30 Rough Riders on the table, and they had an absolute blast. And so they were doing okay, but you weren't seeing them in competitive play as much. A few lists had them, but only usually in units of 5 or something for movements and a little bit of shenanigans. But now they've come down a little bit of points, and I think we're going to start seeing them more in play, which is really great, and that is talking about the competitive scene. The other thing that we saw happen, and this is a little bit unfortunate, but it's okay, the Basilisk and the Manticore went up. So now the Basilisk went up by 15 points, the Manticore went up by 10. In my opinion, that's still okay. The reason that happened, though, is because you were seeing some of the top lists either getting in the top bracket or winning GTs across the world, having 2 Manticores and 1 Basilisk, or 2 Basilisks and 1 Manticore. Nearly every list, right? Along with usually several units of Kazarkin, but we'll get to them in a moment and what happened to them. So I think this is actually going to balance them out. I find the Basilisk to be an amazing unit. With its movement reduction, it's a great way to control your opponent, and it's very effective at killing Space Marines, especially if you give it just a little bit of buffs, right? Or if it attacks a unit where it gets to take advantage of Blast, it can be devastating. That -2 flat 2 damage does a lot. The Manticore, same way. With its damage, it just serves a whole different role, and it was really effective with indirect fire. And usually a lot of people take 1 to 3 Scout Sentinels, so you're losing the penalty to hit, and you're getting reroll 1s, so that means you're hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s with both Basilisk and the Manticore, right? That's very, very effective. And so I think they have now been appropriately point costed. Honestly, I believe that. I thought they were good, and other people thought they were good too, and were taking plenty of them. So now they're kind of balanced in that way. So I think they're appropriately costed. I doubt we'll see many more increases past this point. People are going to be taking them purely because of the role they serve now, not because they're undercosted in points. That's not why we're going to see them on the battlefield. The next thing that happened, which is some other good news, is unrelated to the points changes. This actually makes other units more interesting to look at to take, such as the Earthshaker carriages, which are now 30 points cheaper than the Basilisk. It never made sense to even look at them before because they were so closely costed. Why would you not take the more resilient and better shooting Basilisk over an Earthshaker carriage? So now they've balanced that out, and so I think you're going to start seeing people think about the Hydra, which has changed. You're going to see Earthshaker carriages and other artillery be thought about more often. I still think the Field Ordnance Battery overall is still a little bit overcosted. I would love to have seen that come down 10 points, but that didn't happen. So the other thing, the other buff we got was Hellhounds. I'm excited for this one. I think this is great. Hellhounds went down by 10 points. If you're not familiar with Hellhounds and their ability, they have the ability to make the rest of your army, when shooting at the unit that they shot at, ignore cover. So your opponent loses cover. So if they're hiding in terrain to keep an objective, you can hit them with a Hellhound, and then guess what? Shoot them with a Basilisk, and they don't get the benefit of cover, which they normally always would against artillery and indirect fire weapons. That's really good because you're reducing that save and you're guaranteeing more models killed. So the Hellhound, I think, serves a cool role. It was just a little bit high in points, and now it's come down a little, and I think that's going to allow it to see more play on the tabletop. The Hydra is what's next. Now, the Hydra also came down 10 points. Are you hearing this so far? The changes are modest. They're small. The Hydra came down. I think it's now 85 points, which is really good. You're probably not looking at the Hydra going, oh, it's an anti-aircraft or vehicle. Well, the thing is, it's got the autocannons on it, and autocannons are devastating in 10th edition. They can kill Terminators and other elites. They can damage vehicles really well. They don't have a lot of AP, but we have ways in the Guard to modify AP, and we'll get to that in a moment too. So I think the Hydra is actually a sleeping unit that people need to start testing out and seeing what they can do with it. Then when you go up against the right list, say a Tau list with lots of crisis battle suits and fly keyword things, your Hydra is going to shine. Even things, think about this, units with fly keywords such as Angron, you're going to hit and wound them a little better. So the Hydra, I think, has a better role than what you are thinking it does. Now next is the only thing that I really don't fully agree with in Munitorum Field Manual. Here's my opinion. Are you ready for my opinion? This is a healthy opinion. Kazarkin went up by 20 points. So they're now 120 points. I think that's a little too much. Now, were they good? Yes. And if you didn't know they were good, I don't know what rock you've been under. Maybe the ruins of Cadia, but you've been under a rock, right? So with that, they were being taken in competitive lists a lot, usually 2 to 3 units in a list. Lots of plasma, melta mines, plasma pistol, sniper rifle, the marksman rifle, right? And they were effective. They had good movement. They issued themselves orders. They were great in transports. They were great outside of transports. They were just overall a well-rounded unit, could do a lot. There's a lot of utility in the Kazarkin. They're also a good option for you to spend reinforcements on to bring back, pop on the edge of the table. And I do this all the time in my games. Pop them on the edge of the table, look at an enemy unit and go, you're gone. Just annihilate them. And they can do that against the right targets. So I think it would have been better to take them up 10 points, but GW instead has seen fit to raise them 20 points, so they're 120 now. It does make it a little tough, but I think what we're going to see, instead of people spamming Kazarkin, they're going to take one unit in their list. So they're going to take them just one unit for that utility, and I think that's overall healthier for the army anyways. The next thing we've seen is nearly every variant of the Leman Russ, except for the Tank Commander and the Demolisher, go down 10 points. You heard me right. Every variant other than those two. That is huge. Battle cannon, plasma cannon, the autocannon version, the Vanquisher, and all the variants went down by 10 points. And I think that's really great. Because I think they were just a little too close costed to the Rogal Dorn, for example. And that made it hard to want to take a Leman Russ, right? Why would you want to put a Leman Russ in your list when you could just spend a little bit extra points and get more toughness, more wounds, and more firepower on a single model? That then, if you do want to buff it with, say, Leontis or Tank Commander, well, it's more efficient, right? With the Leman Russes going down in points, I think that's going to make it more enticing to take them. And this is what I can't believe they did, so pay attention. The autocannon variant went down 10 points. That one, its unit ability is special. If it shoots a target, the rest of your army gets an additional AP -1 when shooting that target for the rest of the phase. Yes, please. So, you could take that and a Hydra, so your Hydra can get AP -2 against its targets. So just keep that in mind, or all kinds of other weapons, right? Your Basilisks are now AP -3, and so on and so forth. It's very, very good unit that can buff your other units just by shooting at something, which is what the Guard does. I think that's really awesome. The next couple things are really amazing too. The command squad for the Militarum Tempestus went down by 10 points, and the Militarum Tempestus as squads went down by 1 point per model. I think that is awesome. I think that is now going to balance them out against the Kazarkin. And I already thought that Scions played a very good role in both fun and medium kind of road and competitive lists in the Astra Militarum. And so now I think we're going to see more of them in play. Their ability to deep strike, I think, is wonderful. And with the changes to orders that we got in January 2024, it makes them way more viable. Then add in the point changes, and suddenly, well, they're looking pretty tasty. I would definitely think about taking them. The only reason you all don't see me take them, right? I don't want you to think I'm a hypocrite, is because actually I'm not happy with the paint job on my models. Yep, and I'm that kind of a player, right? If I'm not happy with the way the model looks, I don't want to play it. And I don't like the way I painted my Scions. I've been thinking about repainting them, just haven't decided how yet. The last thing is the only change to Forge World models that we saw this round. And that was the Medusa carriage battery. So it was Medusa on the carriage frame artillery, right? So it had lower toughness, less wounds, and less armor saved than traditional artillery, tracked vehicles, self-propelled vehicles, as we would say in the real world. But its weapon, the Medusa siege cannon, was awesome. And they have now increased it by 15 points. Once again, this is going to balance that artillery out against other artillery units, like the Earthshaker carriage battery or the field ordnance battery, and so on and so forth. So I think this was probably an appropriate response because we were seeing a decent number of players use those in competitive lists with very effective abilities. So it's good to see that kind of balance happen. Now that's it for the point changes and the April 2024 Munitorum Field Manual update. I think that was some good internal balancing. I wish, this is my wish list now, I wish Kazarkin had been 10 points less of an increase. So I wish they'd have gone up to 110 instead of 120, but it's fine. I think it's all going to shake out in the end. Most of your lists are only going to increase probably by 50, 60 points max. And so that's actually going to allow you to just do slight adjustments, maybe remove 5-man infantry squad, maybe remove a character, and you're good to go. You can still play your list as it was. So very minimal changes. For me, my competitive league list I have now, I'm probably going to drop my Cyclops demolition vehicle and just tweak something else and then free up my points that way. And I'm not going to have to worry about it too much because I did have Basilisks, I had Kazarkin in it, right? So I'm just going to tweak that around a little. Maybe I'll even drop one of my chimeras and throw something else in instead and have fun with those things. So I'm going to look at that and see how it impacted me. Other things I wish we'd have seen was maybe some tweaks to the infantry just a little bit more. So I wish we had seen, for example, characters. Castellans, I wish they'd come down by about 5 points. I wish the Krieg Field Marshal had gone up by 5 points. Sorry, everybody, but I think those two units need balanced out. Also, the Castellans are really good, which may be why they didn't take it down in points, because with its buffs, and you can watch my video on everything the Castellan does here on my channel, so go find that, my unit reviews. It's really effective. It can really buff your Cadian units. Fantastic. And you can even put it with other units as well. So check on that on those data sheets. But I really do wish the characters like those had gone up and down a little bit. And I wish Cadians had gone down maybe by 5 points. That's it. That's it. 5 points. I'm not asking for anything big. I also wish the flyers had all come down, all the aircraft. And remember, the Thunderbolt actually had an increase not long ago. I wish they had come down, so that was fall. I wish they had come down by about 10 points or 20 points apiece. The Valkyrie especially, I wish it had come down 20 points. But in defense of aircraft, in defense of GW not modifying the points, here's what you need to remember about aircraft. They don't follow the rules for line of sight like you do with other models. They use true line of sight. So here's what I've been doing with like a Thunderbolt, for example. I've been flying it in on board edge. I just played a game yesterday against World Eaters. They had Angron. I flew in and I said, oh, you're on the other side of the building. They've been hiding Angron behind ruins. And they said, yeah. I said, okay, great. Well, my Thunderbolt gets +1 to hit you because you have fly keyword. And then also I have the Hellstrike missiles, which are anti-fly 2+ to wound. And yeah, so I'm just going to fire everything into Angron. And I'm going to hit on 3s. And I'm going to do all this damage to you. And I did, and my opponent was like, oh my god, that is dangerous. And yeah, against the right units, the Thunderbolt is really good. So I see where, because trust me, I use these units. Hardly anybody's running them right now. I'm running them. I'm running aircraft. It doesn't bother me. And the way their line of sight rules work, they are decently effective. And remember, the Valkyrie does have transport capacity, plus missiles, and heavy bolters, and las cannon. It can pack a punch too. And when it doesn't follow the rules like everything else does, you have to think about it differently. It's not like a tank on the ground. Now, I know it has a drawback because it can be seen by everything, but oftentimes your opponent's going to look at it and go, well, I need to worry about your infantry holding objectives, or I got to worry about your Rogodorns coming up on me and about to blast me away, right? So usually they ignore your aircraft. So that can be a benefit there. So although last night I got a little too close to Angron, he charged the Thunderbolt and turned it into scrap for the orcs to come collect later. Whoopsies, that was my own fault. I got too close to Angron. But I really do wish they would have just tweaked aircraft a little bit. I also wish that Forge World units overall had gotten a few reductions. I love the model range from Forge World, and I think there's some amazing units in there, and they perform decently well, and they're just slightly overcosted. Just a little bit. Really, it's not much. It's 10 points, maybe 20 points here for a lot of the tanks and stuff. And I wish some of those, like the Macarius and the Malcador series, had gotten just a little bit of reduction. I have a feeling, though, there's reasons why they're not tweaking those so much. And I worry with what we just saw with the Orc Codex that we may see a lot of the resin kits go to Legends. And that includes the ones they've updated for Horus Heresy into plastic, may still go to Legends for Warhammer 40k, so they're probably not worried about balancing those units and updating them, which does honestly make me sad. But I also understand. A lot of players, I talk to them and they see I build all these Forge World models, they're like, I don't really want to work with resin. So it's not even, for as big and as popular as the game is now, it's just not something a lot of players want to get into, and they don't want to work with it. It's like old metal models, right? I don't like using old metal models. I can't stand them. That's why you never see me take my priest in any of my lists, because it chips every time I take it out of the case and play with it. And I just can't stand it. And some people feel the same way about resin in general. So I understand that, and that's what I fear is coming, since they've not done much balancing on Forge World models at all. But also, maybe there's just not enough data out there. to balance them. Maybe people aren't running them enough for Games Workshop's rules writers to take note of them, whether they're working or not. But if they're not working, I really wish they'd bring them down a little bit and encourage people to model with them and play with them on the battlefield. The other things that I kind of wish would have happened is I wish the Death Strike would have gotten a slight decrease too. I think it's fun. I've used it in games and I had a blast with it. It was great watching my opponent go, ooh, I don't really want to move onto that little token you put down because you could blow me up and do a lot of mortal wounds. And I'm like, haha, yeah, I could. And it was a great way to do move control, and I think it's effective. But I think because of the way it wounds and the limited number of wounds it can deal out, I think it just should get a little bit of a points decrease for right now. And hopefully they change that in the Codex, and maybe they can increase it back up in points if they make it absolutely devastating. But time will tell, and we'll see what happens. Also wish the Hellhound variants themselves got a points decrease. Because remember, the Melta version has to roll to hit. And that is tough with guard only hitting on 4s, so I wish they had looked at that, and I wish they had looked at the Kincannon version too, because it can be really effective sometimes, but it's just also just that little bit of points is slightly overcosted perhaps, in my opinion. So I think if they'd have brought that down 10 points too, we'd have a lot of players going, well, I could try that out, and that would have been really fun. And I also just want to say I appreciate all of you and your opinions and your comments as well. I was way off about the Bullgrins in my earlier predictions, and I appreciate you all for calling me out on that. I was totally wrong, and they definitely went up. And guess what? I somehow skipped over this earlier. They only went up by 10 points for a 3-man squad. Not bad. Still totally worth it to play with. So, yeah. So overall, I don't think anything's unplayable. I don't think anything got knocked out of competitive lists. I think everyone's still going to run them. We're still going to be seeing people take 6-man units of Bullgrins and multiples even. We're still going to be seeing them take Basilisk, Manticores, and Kazarkin. We're just going to see them span it probably a little bit less or tweak their list a little bit to keep those units in there because they perform their roles really well. And that's the things that need balance when things outperform the other units. So we saw this internal balance. I think overall it was good. I think everything comes out even. And this is going to be good for the game. So we'll see how it shakes out, though. We'll see if we come down from that 50% win rate competitively, maybe down to 40 or 45. But remember also, don't freak out, okay? These numbers fluctuate all the time. And especially with a faction like ours that's popular. And a lot of people play it. So that means we have good players, we have bad players. And you know, how many people, if suddenly it's super popular, people love the models, and there's, 60 players at a GT running Astra Militarum, but only 5 of them really intimately understand the mechanics of the army in and out and play well with it, that's going to hurt your win-lose ratio, right? That's just going to happen. So these numbers fluctuate all the time. So don't see the first, publishing of data after this data slate and go, oh, the guard is ruined. Chill out. Woosa. It'll be okay. And I think we just need to give it what GW does, another 3-4 months. We'll see how it plays out, and we'll see how it does. Overall, I think we're going to be fine, and I think this is going to be great for the game as well. And I hope to see more internal balance because we have a lot of units that people just aren't taking, and they aren't having fun with. Now, if you play for, kind of more casual, or you play narratively, and that way, this isn't going to impact you much at all. And it's really just going to be, once again, you just slightly tweaking your list perhaps and thinking about the guard a little bit differently with some of these changes. For instance, I'm going to think about running a Leman Russ list here soon. I just had a couple people send me their versions of it. So I was talking with 46 Cadian, and I was also talking with my buddy Jerry, and they gave me some ideas about lists they're thinking about running, and I might run the same ones. And then maybe do a list review for you all on that, now that Leman Russ has gotten some love from Games Workshop. And so we'll look at that and we'll talk about it too. All right, that's all I have for you today. I hope you found this video kind of beneficial to you. I hope you enjoy my perspective on this and the way I approach the hobby. I'm here for fun. I hope you're here for fun too. So with that, remember, have fun wargaming and Cadia Stan.